Welcome to Spooky Bear, where darkness whispers your name. And today, please enjoy.
I remember being eaten. When the notice flashed on my phone, "See volunteers needed, university sleep study," I clicked without hesitation. Enough of my days were relentless, deadlines at the ad agency, quiet dinners alone, the pale ache of insomnia. The study promised free lodging, decent pay, and above all, a chance to sleep in a real bed for once. I applied under my full name, Alice Marlowe, and within 2 days, a curt email assigned me to room 3B of Lakewood Sleep Research. The facility looked ordinary from the outside, a low bricked annex beside the university hospital, windows curtained against curious eyes. Inside, the corridors smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. The reception area held a dozen recliners and a plastic fish tank. A clipboard in my hands, I greeted the lab coordinator, Dr. Lenore Hayes, a woman whose smile never quite reached her dark eyes. "Welcome," she said, voice smooth. "We'll have you in for 14 nights. Each evening, you'll settle into our sleep pod, record your dreams in writing, and in the morning, answer a few questionnaires." "Questions?" I asked about the participants. She tapped the clipboard. 12 volunteers, including you. All ages, backgrounds. We're studying dream recall and emotional response. I nodded. No one mentioned the whispers. No one warned me about the nightmares. That first night, I lay on the pod's narrow mattress while electrodes adhered to my scalp and temples. As I drifted off, the lab receded behind my eyelids. I found myself perched on the edge of a cliff. A dull moon hung overhead, pale enough to cast no shadow. The wind carried a low moan, like a chorus of lost souls. Below was a chasm endless as time, walls of black stone that pulsed with a mournful rhythm. From the depths emerged a shape vast beyond reckoning, a maw ringed with fractal teeth, each tooth smaller than a grain of rice, yet infinite in number. The creature's presence bent the air, as if the world itself recoiled in fear. I wanted to flee, but my legs were rooted to the brink. Then it lunged. A cavernous gulf swallowed me. I felt my flesh pour away, my bones splinter beneath a pressure not meant for mortals. A voice, a chorus of distant thunder, roared in my ears, and I remember being eaten. And I was gone. I woke sweating, heart pounding. The pod's mattress felt cold. Dr. Hayes stood behind the observation window, clipboard in hand. "Well?" she prompted. I swallowed a pillow of fear. I dreamed I was eaten. She nodded, as though this were expected. "Describe it." I wrote feverishly, fractal teeth, endless maw, the sensation of dissolution. At the bottom of the paper, I scrawled, "Why can't I wake up?" Across the hall, a volunteer, Mark, a stocky man with a bushy moustache, lifted his head as though an echo had rumbled through the walls. He stared at me, dull surprise in his eyes. Over the next week, I dutifully recorded my nightmare. It never changed, the cliff, the maw, the devouring. But as the study progressed, I noticed something uncanny in the morning interviews. Every volunteer had an entry about eating, not being eaten. They described dreams of feasting on strange meats, siblings, strangers, even their own limbs. A young woman, Sophia, wrote of tasting her mother's marrow. Another, Jeremy, described exultant bloodlust as he consumed the flesh of a CO worker. When they spoke, their faces glowed with satisfaction, as though the dream had been a banquet of joy. The researchers asked neutral questions: intensity, vividness, emotion. None probed the meaning, none connected the dots. I began to wonder, did they know what I'd described? On night 8, they invited us to a group debrief in the lounge. 12 volunteers sat in stiff chairs under fluorescent lights. The walls were lined with mirrors set at odd angles, each reflection fracturing the room into shards. Dr. Hayes spoke without looking at us. "We're interested in the emotional residue of gourmands and supplicants in the dream state. Please share." One by one they recited their dreams. I tore into him. I savored her scream. I chewed until he became liquid. Each confession drew a cluster of murmurings. They smiled as they spoke, faces dappled in mirror glare. When it was my turn, I hesitated. I dream I'm eaten by something ancient, nothing else. A hush fell. Mark, the moustache man, leaned forward. You lived through it, weren't you afraid? I shook. I woke up. A third volunteer, Rowan, cocked her head. But you died inside, right? Isn't that worse? I stood, voice thin. How can you? I trailed off. Their eyes were glazed. They saw me as meat, not a fellow subject. Dr. Hayes called the session. I fled the room, seeing my reflection multiply. 12 Alices staring back, each with hollow eyes and parted lips. By night 10, I trembled at the sleep pod's entrance. The electrodes felt like rusty nails digging into my scalp. As I drifted under, the cliff reappeared. This time, the creature opened its maw before I could react. But I didn't move. I felt weightless, eager. The abyss beckoned. My throat went dry as I felt myself sliding backward over the cliff's rim into the monster's mouth. And then I heard another voice within me, hungry, triumphant. Finally you arrive. I writhed, tearing at the ether like a worm escaping soil. The creature's breath was a gale of stars collapsing. I gasped awake, lungs on fire, and bolted upright, breaking electrodes free. The operator's voices crackled in my ear. Shut it down, subjects thrashing. When I looked at the screen, I saw in blurry pixels the creature's eyes swiveling inside my dream self's helmet. I pried off the headgear, sweat mingling with tears. I felt something had entered me. The next morning, I found my reflection on the pod's viewport, lips chapped, eyes rimmed with shadow, pupils dilated. Dr. Hayes frowned. Subject is overeager, she said flatly. We'll pause your participation for the remainder of the study. Relief, then panic, washed through me. They endangered me, and the others. I confronted her. They dream of eating me. I dream of being eaten. She blinked, as though the words were insects on her skin. Your dreams are unique. We must analyze them further. She smiled, but her eyes were empty. I realized they were mining us, trading dreamscapes like commodities. If they only valued consumption, what had they done to us? By night 12, I couldn't sleep without the dream. I prowled the halls, overhearing their crisp confessions in the observation room. I tasted her thigh. I bit into her jawbone. They catalogued their violence with dispassionate glee. I felt something stirring beneath my ribs, a new hunger, an echo of their consumption. I lay in bed, fist tangling in sheets, and the voice rippled through my mind. Eat or be eaten. I sat up, staring at my arms. My skin seemed translucent, veins like dark rivers. I felt as though I could digest shadow. The hunger grew until I staggered to the cafeteria and ripped into a rack of lamb with my bare hands, chewing raw flesh while onlookers backed away. The meat slid down my throat like warm ink. I felt power. That night I returned to the pod not to escape, but to join them. On the final night, the 12 of us assembled in the debrief lounge. Mirrors flickered on the walls. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, smiling as always. Tonight, we conclude. She gestured to the circle of chairs. Each volunteer sat, eyes haunted, mouths stained crimson. I held a butcher's knife in my lap, an impulse I barely understood. In my hand, it felt like an extension of my bone. Dr. Hayes raised her hand. Share your final dream. They spoke in turn, devouring friends, family, even themselves in recursive feasts. When they were done, Dr. Hayes nodded to me. Silence rippled. I stood. I dreamed I was eaten, I said. But that ended when I swore to eat first. A low murmur rose. I felt their gaze on me, hungry, curious. I brandished the knife. The blade caught the fluorescence, casting shards of light. I saw not fear in their eyes, but invitation. I lunged at Dr. Hayes. She didn't move. The others rose as well, knives drawn, blood-stained smiles on their lips. I realized we were no longer volunteers. We were apostles of an ancient rite, consecrated in flesh. Later, I don't know how long, I woke on the floor of the debrief lounge. The chairs were piled high with limbs and organs, a macabre offering beneath the mirror's fractured eyes. The bodies lay twisted on the carpet, researchers and volunteers, indistinguishable, consumed in turn. I rose, knife still slick. I touched a fingertip to my tongue, iron and salt. The hunger was present, but sated, humming beneath my flesh. I walked to the podium where Dr. Hayes had presided. On her desk lay the manuscript of the study, White in Dream Consumption, a new frontier in psychobiology. I opened to the conclusion. Our findings suggest that the dream state can manifest primal urges, and under controlled conditions, train subjects in consensual self-consumption. Further exploration is warranted. I closed the book. Outside, the dawn would break any minute, flooding the building with oblivion. I dropped the knife, its clatter echoing in the stained halls. I understood then. The dream didn't end. We were the ritual, bound to reenact it night after night, dreaming of devouring and being devoured. In the sleep lab's mirrors, I saw my reflection fracture into 12 hungry faces, each hungry for the same truth, and the only escape from the maw is to become the maw itself. And so, I walked out into the hall, feet drenched in blood, and I whispered to the empty corridors, to the eyes in the mirrors, and I remember being eaten. And I laughed.
Sleep is a luxury, and you've just run out. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be waiting for you, if you dare.